Hull, a Tuesday afternoon. A woman in her middle years walks into a classroom, a piano waiting. The children call her Mrs. Kent. No one in the room suspects who is really sitting in front of them. Only the head teacher knows the truth, and he has kept it for 13 years. This woman was once one of the most photographed royals in Britain, a duchess with her own title and her own rank. And yet, by the end, she will be nothing more than a name, Mrs. Kent. How a duchess arrives at that name begins 50 years earlier, with a rejection. She is born Katharine Worsley on the 22nd of February 1933 at Hovingham Hall in Yorkshire. Her father sits as a baronet at the head of Yorkshire Cricket Club and leads the county as Lord Lieutenant. Her maternal great-grandfather founds Brunner Mond, which later becomes the chemical giant ICI. Katharine grows up as the only daughter among 3 sons and is doted on accordingly. She sits at the piano, the organ, the violin, practicing to concert standard. She works at a children's home in York, teaches at a nursery school in London, then goes on to Oxford to study music, art, and history. In 1956, she turns her life upside down. At a party near the Catterick Army Base, she meets Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, grandson of King George V. His mother, Princess Marina, examines the match like a judge. Greek-born, with bloodlines running to Russia and Denmark, widowed since 1942, when her husband dies in a wartime plane crash just 3 weeks after the birth of their 3rd child. Marina raises 3 children alone and holds the Kent branch of the family together through sheer discipline. She rejects Katharine twice. The engagement drags on for 5 years before Marina finally relents in 1961. On the 8th of June 1961, Katharine and Edward marry at York Minster, the first royal wedding held there in over 600 years. 8 million watch on television. The bride wears 273 yards of silk organza, secured by the Kent diamond and pearl fringe tiara, a gift from her own mother-in-law. What follows is no fairy tale, but a life under scrutiny. Marina remains the ruling authority of the household, scrutinizing her daughter-in-law's every appearance, judging Katharine too quiet, too unsure for the role. Katharine, shy by nature, calls herself a Yorkshire lass and holds her ground. She moves with Edward to Hong Kong, to Germany, always on the periphery of the crown. Between 1962 and 1970, the couple has 3 children: George, Helen, Nicholas. 1968 brings the first turn. Marina dies of a brain tumor, aged 61, within hours of the diagnosis. Katharine takes on 8 royal patronages overnight, traveling for the crown to Uganda, to the coronation of the King of Tonga. Edward withdraws, leaving the duty to her. 1975 brings the second turn. A rubella infection during pregnancy forces a medical termination. In 1977, Katharine becomes pregnant again. She gives birth to a son who does not survive the birth. She names him Patrick. She spends 7 weeks in a clinic, officially for nervous exhaustion. She stays silent for 20 years, then breaks that silence as one of the first royals ever to do so. "I had no idea how devastating that could be," she tells the press in 1997. At the same time, the family comes under financial pressure. From Marina's estate, the couple sells off several pieces of jewelry through the 1970s and 1980s, among them the historic Cambridge sapphire tiara, generations old, once a wedding gift from Queen Mary to Marina. From the remaining stones of the necklace, Katharine has a smaller tiara made. An aquamarine tiara from the family goes under the hammer at Sotheby's. For 26 years, she presents the trophies at Wimbledon, succeeding Marina in that role. 1993 brings the third turn, this time in public. Jana Novotná loses the final to Steffi Graf and breaks down on center court. Katharine goes to her, holds her, comforts her in front of the cameras. The image travels around the world. In these years, an unlikely friendship grows. Princess Diana and Katharine confide their loneliness to one another. In 1996, Diana divorces, and most of her former allies keep their distance. Katharine stays. Persistent rumors have circulated for years about her own marriage, separate residences, an impending split. None of it is ever confirmed. Katharine and Edward remain married until her death, 64 years in all. In 1994, she converts to Catholicism, the first member of the royal family to do so since. The Act of Settlement of 1701. The Queen consents without hesitation. 2002 brings the decisive break. Katharine voluntarily relinquishes her title of Royal Highness. She withdraws almost entirely. What she does instead surprises even the press. At Wansbeck Primary School in Hull, under the name Mrs. Kent, she begins giving piano lessons. She drives 400 miles for it, every week, for 13 years. In 2004, she founds the charity Future Talent, offering free music tuition to children with no instrument of their own. She also volunteers with the Samaritans, an organization for crisis prevention. In 2018, she appears in public once more, at the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. She is absent from the Queen's funeral in 2022 and from King Charles's coronation in 2023. Only in 2022, in an interview, does Katharine herself confirm what no one in Hull ever knew. Her pupils never found out who had taught them to play piano. To them, she had never been a duchess. To them, she was always just Mrs. Kent.